Welcome to the Point of View podcast. Today we're talking Waukegan politics. I have my good friend with me, 6th Ward Alderman Keith Turner, who's running for mayor of Waukegan. Welcome, Keith.
Hey, Ron. Thanks. Good to see you again. Good to shake your hand, and I'm looking forward to the interview.
So you want to run for mayor?
Man, I am not just wanting to. I'm doing it. I am on the ballot. I am running.
And why do you want to be mayor of Waukegan?
Well, bottom line is that I see that we need to focus more and prioritize more on problem solving for solutions to those things that most immediately and directly impact us of Waukegan, how we live, how we work, and how we do business. So I'm going to bring that focus to Waukegan now.
So what do you see as the number one issue facing the city?
Well, it depends on the context. I have what I call my prime initiatives vision for Waukegan, but the top two, public safety is number one. To answer your question, that's my number one priority is public safety. And my number two priority, how we do business with the city of Waukegan so that we can do business in the city of Waukegan. So those are the top two things that we have to solve for.
So what are you going to do, or what can you do differently about public safety that hasn't?
I'm glad you asked. And I challenge you, Ron, or I would ask you to ask others who we interview the same or similar questions. And for your audience, I would ask you to listen carefully to what the candidates say when asked such questions as that. So often people will say, they kind of reiterate the question and they don't answer, they don't give you anything. So what I say to you is this: I have ideas and I have plans, and there is a difference. So to answer your question, what I intend to do differently, for one, I will establish a 7-officer traffic enforcement unit to focus on reckless driving, drag racing, and loud vehicles. And I have some specific ideas about how we're going to do that. This is an epidemic throughout the city. I know that you hear it.
You hear them up and down the Amstead South Side.
And up and down Jackson Street. Yeah. So right now we only have, and for years, we only have one traffic officer for the entire city of Waukegan.
And these 7 officers will come from the existing personnel.
Yes. So some of the other candidates will talk about hiring more police and or having hired more police. And I want to explain how that works. It doesn't work, and how it could work, but it won't work. Does that make sense?
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. All right. So first of all, we have roughly 165 sworn police officers.
What is full census for the city for the police department? What would be maximum staffing with the police department?
About 168.
Okay, so we're pretty much there.
Well, in Waukegan, yeah. Other communities like Kenosha, which is similar in size, similar in demographics, they have 220 officers. And that's where I would like to. Ideally, I would like to be at 220 officers. However,
how do you get to 220 though?
It's going to be expensive. Yes, sir.
Pensions and
right. So it's approximately $500,000 over 20 years for a single police officer or firefighter. So if you're going to bring in 60, let's say we're going to bring in 60 officers, then you're talking like $25 million or more. So it's cost prohibitive. Not to say it couldn't be done, but it would be expensive to do it. And I don't see the citizens embracing a tax increase of that magnitude, right? Because we already know that we don't get the perception is that we don't get an adequate return on our tax dollar investment.
So, and I know probably the people out there are going to say, well, we have the casino now. Mm-hmm. So obviously that's not going to generate that kind of revenue to add 60 officers over a period of time.
Well, the thing with the casino is we receive lease payments. We receive a piece of the profits. We receive money for the licensing of each gaming machine, sales tax, and $1 a head for every time someone walks in the door. So we're getting a lot of money. Not only that, but we get money from the two cannabis dispensaries. And as we sit here today, that fund is about $13 million.
Does that go right to general funds for the city?
No,
or is
that's sitting over in the bank. That's in the hole.
We're being used for what?
Nothing.
Like rainy day fund, or just it's like why isn't it being used?
We have not decided yet how we want to spend it.
So we're sitting at $13 million that we could be paving roads with.
Right. But you have to also consider that there are a number of other things you have to consider, right? One being lawsuits. We have had a number of lawsuits. We anticipate more lawsuits, or at least another
lawsuits for
any number of things. There are employees who are injured on the job. There are police officers misconduct. Sometimes some of these suits are just nuisance suits.
Sure. So nothing's really particular. Right. Just it's part of baked into the cake of running a city.
So we do have an emergency contingency fund or savings account.
Isn't there insurance for that, or is it
rainy day? We have a rainy day fund, right? So I'm talking about two different funds now. We got the rainy day fund. We have the money coming off the casino and the cannabis dispensaries, right? The rainy day fund is just what that's for. That's kind of for emergencies. We're holding on to these other monies from the casino as kind of an additional rainy day fund. But I want to kind of qualify it. We're in the midst of planning for the reallocation of those monies, right? How are we going to spend them? The wish list. They call it the reallocation promise or something. I don't know what the P is for. Anyway, the mayor wanted to take $5 million and redo the streets and sidewalks and decorative lighting down on Genesee Street, which is ridiculous.
Isn't Genesee Street in a TIF fund?
It is.
So why wouldn't you use the TIF money for?
Well, no. Before you get there, why would you do it anyway? We just did think about this.
So your argument basically it doesn't need to be done.
No, of course not. We already did that.
It looks beautiful down there.
We renovated the Genesee Theater. We built that brand new empty building across the street. We built the parking lot. We installed the brick sidewalks. We redid the streets and we put in the decorative lighting. Just because it's 20 years old doesn't mean you want to tear it all out and do the whole thing again.
Agreed.
So we've already.
So we're sitting on $13 million and we don't know what to do with. So what would you do as mayor? What would you do with that $13 million?
With that $13 million, all things were considered, and if I could just pull it off, I would invest significantly in redoing our streets and roads. Right, Washington Street corridor is a disaster that needs to be done. I have a plan for that. Which I would say we go to the county and ask them to do their portion. If not 50 or 80-20 split or something of that nature. If not, if they don't want to do it, then I'd ask them to just vacate and give it to us, the city, right? And if they don't want to give it up, then I would just resurface it and send the county a bill.
Sure. I mean, I know the local roads are horrible.
They are.
I mean,
and even here, I want you to think about where you live, your street, and also next time you think of it, notice Jackson Street. This is the main thoroughfare through the city, but look at it in the 6th Ward. We'll say from Grand through Greenwood, and what you'll see is not just deterioration of the street, but along the curb line, and some of many places actually turning to gravel. So this is where I think we need to focus, in part, a significant portion of our resources, and this is not just particularly these streets that I mentioned, but across the city.
Sure. So you're for getting back to the basics of infrastructure, police, fire.
Absolutely.
The most important things.
Absolutely. Again, those things that most immediately and directly impact us, right? So that's where I would go. So we started out, we kind of touched on the traffic officers, and now we're talking about infrastructure. But I'd like to kind of go back to, if you don't mind, the public safety.
Sure.
So I'd like to form this 7-officer traffic safety unit, which we had in the past. So I would like to beef up our gang intelligence unit. An interesting point of note is that we don't have a gang intel unit because our current administration, the mayor, doesn't want the police officers to say the word gang, so they renamed the gang intelligence unit the Community Crimes Division. When I'm mayor, we're going to call it gangbusters. Go get them. I don't know, but it's the Elliott Ness Squad. We're going to beef that unit up. Right now, they're understaffed. I like to at a minimum, double their staff.
And so how are you going to increase their staff within the 165 that
right.
exist?
So we can do some realignment of resources. We can realign some of our resources and ask, working with the unions, of course, for additional commitment in aiding. It doesn't have to be an entire unit. It's additional resources.
So they could work out of class of whatever their particular union description is to allow them to do.
Exactly. And for that unit, which they do. So it's all one team. Right, but maybe we can figure a way that the gang intel unit can even more closely integrate exchanges and funneling of information from other officers, not just patrol, but other officers, because we have a number of details and other employees of the city who might be able to aid. So it's a thought. And again, as I said, and I want to qualify this, I have some ideas, and they may or may not work, and I have some plans that I'm certain will work.
So let's talk about economic development. As mayor, what would be your ability for economic development? I mean, we're a capitalist country, so
Right.
So I know it's pretty limited in what the city can do.
Right. So the mayor cannot demand or order or make or force someone to do anything. Can't say, I want you to go build something over there. You can't do it. And as you said, we're a capitalist country. The market drives itself. But we have a number of developers and investors who want to invest in Waukegan but refuse to do so. And the reason for that is it's so incredibly difficult and challenging to do business with the city of Waukegan. Now, I and other aldermen, the single most common and consistent complaint that we hear is how difficult it is to do business with the city of Waukegan.
Difficult in which way?
The red tape, the bureaucracy, the lack of communications internal within the city.
So the permitting process itself.
Not that. That's, yes, but it's far more than that. Again, it's the lack of communication. I mean, how do you run a $270 million corporation where your senior employees, and it's a commonality, it's cultural, and not just senior employees, but across the board, don't communicate. They don't answer the phone, or you roll into their voicemail, but the voicemail is full. There is an unwritten cultural policy, if you will, not to respond to emails. You can't catch a meeting with the mayor. You walk in the city hall, you've got a guard, he's got two secretaries, two receptionists sitting down there. The elevators are locked. You can't get up to the mayor's office or other city-facing departments such as planning and zoning, the building department, the code enforcement department. You can't get in there without an appointment, and you can't make an appointment.
So when you're mayor,
we're going to reopen City Hall.
Would you have like I spent years working for Secretary White.
Right.
And so Secretary White always would have on Saturday mornings, you go to the ward office, you could sit down and talk to him about things going on in Secretary of State's office, board business, baseball.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. You wanted 10 minutes with him, you got it.
Right.
So when you become mayor, would you open to Saturdays, for example? Where you'll have X amount of, so many hours a week or a month where people can visit with you.
Well, I'm thinking I'm going to call it office hours or office with the mayor. I don't know what we'll call it. And I'm thinking it will be the second Tuesday of each month, right? So we have council meeting the first and third Monday. Well, on the second Tuesday, you could come in and you could talk to me about what happened in the last meeting or what you think should happen in the next meeting, right? So I want to have that engaged, that open, that interactive communications with the city, with the residents and the business owners. And I want to do that proactively, right? I think this is a fallacy of the current administration in that, there's a lack of communication. Again, internally amongst the staff, externally to those who are interested parties who are doing business, whether it's the resident or business owners. It's a real challenge. So we're going to change that.
Let's talk about the things that are in the news today. Mm-hmm. Like we have a lot of first generation families here in Waukegan that are concerned about what's going on with the ICE raids. Mm-hmm. and that and I saw your statement and thought spot on, but I know there was a little backlash, so I think that maybe they didn't quite understand what you're trying to communicate. So what are your thoughts on what's going on with this situation?
I think the backlash is where people, they misread or didn't read my statement, or they read my statement but didn't read the mayor's statement. So, and most of the backlash, I thought it was directed towards the mayor's statement. We're in a interesting, difficult, even challenging position in that we have federal law and the federal agencies engaged in their operations, but we have state law, the Trust Act, that specifies what and limits the city and other not just municipalities, but agencies can do. So I think it's important that we follow state law. We've got to. I'm not going to buck state law. Here's what I'm for. The law says that if they show up with a federal warrant, then you provide whatever information is in the warrant. Easy peasy. And so to put folks' mind at ease, my understanding, and I only hear the same information everyone else hears. We get in the news, on YouTube, or wherever. So I'm not privy to any inside information. All I'm saying is from what I understand, The focus is on primarily on those who are hardcore criminals operating within our community, and that if they by chance, they being the authorities, by chance come across someone who may be in the same vicinity or associated or interacting with really bad people, they'll take them too. But as far as the city government and as far as what my philosophy is, I think we carry on as we are today, right? With in following the Trust Act until such time as something changes, be it to the courts or to
Congress. So what it was under Joe Biden is still how you feel we should follow it under the current administration until Congress otherwise dictates with legislation or a change of the law, or the courts rules something that says otherwise. Not on a national level.
Because, Ron, you say as it was under Joe Biden. I got to tell you, I really don't follow closely national or state.
But technically, the law really hasn't changed. I mean, we're still scooping them up under the same laws that existed prior to President Trump coming in.
Yeah. When did they pass the Trust Act?
Oh, that's been a few years.
Oh, well, then it was under Joe Biden. You're right.
Yeah.
I don't know, because my focus is really, seriously, my focus is on Waukegan. And I know other things outside dynamics do impact.
And definitely things are way out of the control of the mayor other than the level of cooperation, which I agree. If there's a federal warrant, you have to abide by the law.
Abide by that, right?
That's part of the oath of being mayor.
That's right.
And so let's talk about the building department a little bit. A lot of talk about how expensive permittings are and difficult it is. So what are your thoughts for the building department?
Well, interestingly enough, I do hear some complaints about cost of permits, but not a lot. Mostly I'm hearing about how difficult the process is. So you may apply for a permit. Sometimes it's never consistent. It's never the same. You might have to apply for a permit or a license, but before you can apply, you have to have a pre-application meeting. So you got to set a meeting to talk about what you're going to or what you would like to apply for. And only after you clear that meeting are you allowed to apply.
So, and these meetings are with building inspectors, or
no. This is like it could be with the planning and zoning department, and it could include the development review board. So, and this is part of the problem. There's a lack of consistency, and the information that you're provided, often you're not provided all of the information that you need. Right. So you go through the process as you understand it, and you provide the information, you check the boxes, and you turn it in, and you're waiting for a response, and you can't get a response, and you don't get an email, and so forth. And then at some point you do get a response, and you say, well, we also need X. I said, well, why didn't you tell me that before? Right. Well, 6 months ago. It's not just the building department. There are other departments that interface or may interface or be part of the process of sitting on the scope. And are you building a new facility totally? Or are you expanding?
Versus a business building, or you're putting a fence up in your backyard?
Exactly. Yeah.
Sure.
Lack of communication is often a hindrance. And you'll probably notice it in your time with the Secretary of State. Often the easiest way to solve a problem is at the lowest level. And it's just a matter of communicating. Sometimes we don't communicate sufficiently so that the interested party or the active party understands what is required.
This communication issue is an administrative issue more than beyond just a legislative issue. So something internally within the way that City Hall operates. Right. So you need something like Teams or some way to improve communications.
I think it's a matter of training. I think it's a cultural thing. It's evolved. It's not new. It's evolved over years and decades, and it's passed on to new employees. This is how we do. And you'll hear this all the time, right, from folks. This is how we do. This is how we've always done it. It's been done like that for 30 years. Why should we change? This is the Waukegan way, right? And I reject that concept.
So let's talk about police and fire a little bit more.
The thing about adding officers. So first of all, it's hard. It's very difficult to recruit new officers. When we were kids growing up, a lot of kids wanted to be firemen and policemen and so forth. It's not the case anymore. It's very difficult to recruit. So all over the country, departments all over the country are scabbing off of each other, right? So we'll offer, call them collateral hires, right? So what we do is we'll say, we'll throw up the flag and say, hey, if you join Waukegan PD, we'll give you a bonus, we'll give you extra days off, we'll give you training, special units, and those kinds of things. And of course, the larger departments, Chicago, Los Angeles, whatever, big cities, they have more resources, they can make better officers, better offers. And then here's an interesting thing that no one considers. Let's say you hire 5 officers or 10 officers today. In 20 years, they're going to start retiring. They can retire at 55 with 20 years in. So 20 years from now, and this is what's happening now, right? 20 years ago, we hired 15 officers, and they all start retiring now. We'll say they retire between 20 and 30 years, somewhere in that window, right? So you have to hire their replacement. You don't wait until they retire to hire the replacement. You have to recruit. You have to test and do all this and get them in the academy and get them through and get them, spun up and on the street so that this guy can retire. When he retires, your staffing remains approximately the same. And this is why the police department's sworn officer staffing kind of fluctuates from around 157, 58, 55, somewhere in there, up to about 168, right?
And is it the same issue within the fire department too?
It's the same issue with city employment across the board. For our public safety first responders, we'll call them, that's kind of how it works, right? You have what you have to consider.
Let's go back to infrastructure for a minute. The mayor just sent out a new piece of literature touting $90 million in infrastructure. Now, I'm going to presume that's not 90 million additional dollars. I'm going to presume at some point.
90
million, yes. And that's so what how much do we spend on infrastructure?
Well, we spent quite a bit on infrastructure, and to the mayor's credit, it's not entirely her credit. The mayor didn't go out and survey streets and say, I think I'll fix that street.
I would presume the previous administration spent 80 million or something.
He spent a little bit. He didn't spend that much.
It's not been a 90 million additional investment.
Every administration is going to do something with streets.
It's a bit of a shell game, and it's all grants available, MFT funds. Sure.
And the interesting thing is, this administration never talks about any cost savings. Didn't save money here and cut spending there. Only what she spent. And you'll remember the mayor stated that she had a balanced budget, but she actually took $7 million from our rainy day fund, right, to shore up her deficit budget, right? So I think it was the budget was, she had $28 million. It was $35 million. So she went and got 7 and said, I balanced my budget. The other thing that is never mentioned is that coming out of COVID and all these American recovery funds were available. This is how we fill the gap.
Sure. And that happened all over the country.
Exactly. But what you see, this is one of the things, Ron, that I think we need to be as transparent and honest and informative, right? So you ask me, I'll tell you as best I can. Now, everything you can't just tell everything.
Sure.
Right? But things like that, I want to be transparent. I want you to know, hey, guess what? We just got X number of dollars from the feds and the states, and this is what we're going to do with it. Not, I magically saved money. No.
Now, I'm going to presume that Waukegan's receiving some of the infrastructure funds, or should be at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
And absolutely. So what would be your plan for infrastructure?
I would focus primarily. There are some like sewers and storm sewers and freshwater piping, that kind of things that need to be addressed as well, right? So I'm not just minimizing or disregarding, but we have such a problem with our streets and roads. So many of these streets in central Waukegan have not been resurfaced in decades, and some never.
Do you know how many miles of roads? I don't know myself.
Yeah, I do. And I've actually got some interesting demographics I'd like to share with you, if I may.
Sure.
But it's about 24 miles of roadway and about 143 miles of sewer and such, right? So that's quite a bit to maintain. Speaking of which, because you can't talk about roads in Waukegan without talking about potholes. And I have a plan to defeat the annual pothole crisis.
Right? Oh, what's that?
Okay, so what I like to do is kind of divide the city into 4 quadrants, and then utilizing our public works workers as well as private contractors, paving companies, and we would go down every single street in Waukegan, and we could use technology like GIS and drones and such. But I want to not just fix potholes, but I want to survey. So when you're out there fixing a pothole, and my goal would be to fix every pothole by the end of June, right after each winter. By the end of June, no potholes. But also when they're out there to survey and look and see are there deteriorating curbs or curb lines that need to be repaired as well. Maybe the sidewalks need repair. And where you like I have a driveway, if they're doing Jackson Street and they're repaving it, then maybe I, as the citizens or the residents, home property owners, could tag onto that concrete or that contract. They're there anyway. Why don't you just do my my little driveway pad, the apron, right? So you do that, get that at a reduced cost because they're doing this big contract anyway.
Sure, and they're gonna have to tear it up to do the curb and everything.
There you go. So we can work smarter and not harder, and bring some benefit to the resident.
Sure. All right. Well, thank you for doing this. Let me give you as much time as you want to leave a closing remark to the people of Waukegan as to why we should vote for you.
All right, great. Thank you. So we didn't talk much about politics. One thing I want to point out, I'm independent. I am running to be the mayor of Waukegan. I don't believe in, and I don't want to bring party politics into the office. I think it does us all a disservice. So I'm not here to represent any party or political ideology, right? I'm independent, working for the people. I have a reputation for getting things done here in the 6th Ward and across the city. I'm going to bring that same energy, that same focus, that same get-it-done attitude to the mayor's office. I'm going to serve the people, and you're going to know what's happening. We're going to reopen City Hall, and I promise you, transparency, honesty, and integrity in everything that we do to the best of my ability.
So election day is April 1st.
April 1st is election day. Early voting will start March 7th. Early and mail-in voting starts March 7th. I'll be number 3 on the ballot, and I'd be honored to have a vote of everyone in this audience.
And what's your webpage if people want to come learn a little more about you?
Thank you for asking. Our website is votekturner.com, and I am up on Facebook and to some lesser degree on Instagram, but you'll be seeing a lot more activity on Instagram and across the board. So
super. Well, thanks for doing this with Keith, and good luck.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a great night.